Episode 2: What a Small Nation Can Become. Welcome back to the Dominican Blueprint podcast. I'm Ephraim, and today we're talking about something simple but also dangerous. What a small nation can become. The Dominican Republic, like many developing countries, has been measured for decades by the same old yardsticks: tourism, remittances, informal labor, a political culture that reacts instead of designs. And because that's all anyone expects, that's all anyone invests in, the expectations become the limits. But here's the truth few are willing to say out loud. Small nations aren't small. People's expectations of them are. And if expectations can be redesigned, then destinies can be rewritten. All right, so part 1 of what I'm thinking here. The myth of limited countries. There's a phrase I often hear: Somos un país pequeño. We're a small country. But Japan is small. South Korea is small. Singapore is a dot on the map. Israel is barely the size of Samaná and depends on lands far more hostile than ours. And yet these nations dominate technology, agriculture, defense, and global policy conversations. What changed? Not their size. Their mindset, their system design, their national expectations. The Dominican Republic and countries like it have been conditioned to think small because their elites think small. The public sector thinks in election cycles. The private sector thinks in quarterly profits. The poor think in daily survival. In that environment, nation building sounds like fiction. But fiction is only the blueprint spoken aloud before the architecture is possible. Part 2 of what I'm thinking. The Dominican advantage. People like to talk about Dominican disadvantages: corruption, bureaucracy, weak institutions. But they rarely talk about our advantages: a young population, a large diaspora with high skill mobility, over 1 million hectares of fertile land, a Caribbean position unmatched in shipping and logistics, a culture that adapts and survives, a work ethic shaped by necessity, not comfort, and perhaps most importantly, an untapped emotional appetite for national greatness. Dominicans don't lack ambition. They lack a system worthy of their ambition. Part 3. Redefining destiny. What does it actually mean for a nation to rise? Not flags, not speeches, not international conferences. It means mastery over 5 things. Number 1, Food production. A country that cannot feed itself is not sovereign. Number 2, energy. If your electricity depends on foreign hands, your future does too. 3, education. Not diplomas, productive capability. Engineers, agronomists, marine biologists, technologists. Number 4, technology adoption. Not invention, adaptation. Using AI, automation, biotechnology, robotics as multipliers. Number 5, export power. A nation grows wealthy when the world depends on what it produces. Most governments chase GDP. Well, empires chase influence through production. If the Dominican Republic truly decides, to specialize in agriculture, marine biotech, and agro-manufacturing, we could control regional food flows within 15 years. And once you control food, you control stability. Part 4, the real question. When people ask me about the ambition behind this project, I always answer with a question. Why shouldn't a Dominican child grow up expecting to live in a G10 nation? Why shouldn't we export refined agricultural products at scale? Why shouldn't we produce marine pharmaceuticals? Why shouldn't we train 100,000 specialized professionals a year? Why shouldn't we manage a Caribbean logistics flotilla to integrate the region's food supply? The Caribbean region. We accept ceilings because someone convinced us they are structural, not psychological. But ceilings can be broken. And nations can be rebuilt the same way people rebuild themselves. Through discipline, clarity, and a refusal to stay where the world placed them. Through discipline, clarity, and a refusal to stay where the world placed them. Part 5. From story to system. This podcast is not about complaining and is not about romanticizing struggle. No. It's about design. It's about taking the lessons I learned from very different environments. The streets that taught me instinct. The prisons that taught me structure. The universities that taught me inquiry. And the hills of Samaná that taught me purpose. And using them to architect a national framework that's bigger than any individual story. This is not nostalgia. This is strategy. If a man can rebuild himself after chaos, a nation can do the same. So, in closing, the premise of this episode, small nations are not defined by their landmass, but by the size of their systems. And for the Dominican Republic, the window of opportunity is not closing, it's opening. In the next episode, we're going deeper in one of the pillars of the blueprint, the Caribbean agricultural block. What it is, why it matters, and how it changes everything. Thank you for listening. If these ideas resonate with you, share the podcast, follow the Patreon, or follow me on Patreon, and join the conversation. The blueprint is only the beginning. The work is what follows.